I landed at 4:13 p.m. The clouds over Minneapolis were a thick gray curtain, sagging low and heavy with sleet. I remember because I was staring out the window as the plane taxied toward the gate, my forehead pressed to the cold plastic, my phone still in airplane mode, my fingers twitching with anticipation. Not nervous, not excited. Something in between. Something dull. I hadn't been home in nearly a year. Not since the last hospital visit. Not since the quiet way she looked at me. Like she knew. Like we both knew. I booked the earliest flight. I could when Dad texted, "It's happening, probably today." No punctuation, no time frame, just that. It was a 5-hour flight from Seattle, with a layover I sprinted through. I barely made the connection. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. The airport terminal in Denver was just a blur of fluorescent lighting and rushed apologies. I remember the aching in my knees. I remember clutching Mom's scarf, still faintly, floral from last spring, in my coat pocket the whole time. Like maybe if I held it tight enough, she'd wait. At baggage claim, I pulled out my phone. That's when I saw it. In the family group chat. The one they made without asking. The one I stayed in because no one noticed I never replied. A photo of her ashes, already scattered, captioned with a single heart emoji. And I was still standing at Carousel 3, watching a suitcase that looked like mine spin past for the 3rd time. Except it wasn't mine, because I hadn't made it. They hadn't waited. I didn't cry right away. That came later. At first, I just stood there scrolling. There was a picture of my sister, Rachel, kneeling by the lake in that white coat Mom always complimented. The one I remembered from Christmas, the last time I came home before the cancer, was called Aggressive. She looked beautiful, I guess. Thoughtful, poised. Her hair was curled just slightly, like it had been done on purpose but made to look accidental. There was another photo, all of them standing in a line. Dad, my uncle, Rachel's fiancé even. All of them. Everyone. Except me. I zoomed in. I looked for space between them, like maybe I'd been photoshopped out. There wasn't any. I didn't call. I didn't text back. Didn't say, "Why didn't you wait?" Because I think I already knew the answer. They'd decided before I boarded. They had planned it that way. The group message pinged again as I was walking toward the exit. Rachel, we weren't sure your flight would land in time. It was so beautiful, though. I hope you felt it, too. Felt it? I didn't even know where. They were. Outside the terminal, snow had begun to fall. The kind that melts instantly when it hits the ground, like it doesn't want to stay. I stood at the curb. My bag was heavier than usual, not just with clothes, but with the journal I'd kept since Mom got sick. It had all her messages, all her favorite recipes scribbled in the margins, and one envelope tucked into the back cover that I still hadn't opened. It had my name on it. Just my name. I thought maybe I'd open it when I saw her. Or maybe read it at the lake, wherever they decided to let her go. But I didn't get that choice. They had already chosen. I booked a motel near the old neighborhood, not the house. I couldn't go back there. Not yet. There were lights on in her room when I passed it in the Uber. Not mine. Hers. Rachel's. She'd moved back months ago. To help with Mom, she said. But I always knew she liked playing the role of the good daughter She knew when to be visible, when to offer tea, when to cry in front of Dad, but not too much. I remember Mom once said to me, "You're so quiet, Lily. Sometimes I think you vanish into your thoughts before the rest of us even catch up." I don't think she meant it as a bad thing, but it stuck. Now it felt more like, you vanished, so we moved on. In the motel room, I didn't unpack. I sat on the edge of the bed with the envelope in my lap, but I still didn't open it. I needed a moment that wasn't surrounded by the residue of everyone else's grief. I wanted my own space, my own goodbye. The motel TV glowed with static before it clicked to the news. I watched it in silence, let it fill the room with someone else's voice, someone who didn't know what today was. Then I turned it off, and I started writing. Not to them, not to Rachel, not to Dad, just to Mom, in the same journal I'd started 6 months ago, and I wrote, "You didn't forget me. I know you didn't. They did, but I know you didn't. I'm still here, Mom. I'll find my way to goodbye. My way, not theirs." Didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept hearing the radiator tick like an impatient clock. Kept thinking maybe I'd dream of her, that she'd come and tell me it was okay, that she knew I tried, that she forgave me for missing the lake, for missing her. But I didn't dream at all. Instead, I watched snow gather on the windowsill until the sky started to bruise pink, like it was embarrassed to be morning again. At 7:12, I got a text. From Dad. Just 4 words. "Do you want breakfast?" No apology, no explanation, not even a sorry you missed it. Just eggs, probably. Maybe toast. And that awkward silence he hides behind the newspaper. The same one I grew up trying to interpret like a secret code. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked. Wrapped Mom's scarf around my neck 3 times, pulled my hat low, stepped outside into the sharp air like it owed me something. The streets looked the same. I half expected the world to feel different, like it should have gone quiet in her absence. But the cars still passed. The neighbor's porch light still flickered. A kid still skated down the sidewalk like it was just another Tuesday. I walked past the elementary school, the grocery store where she always talked too long in the produce aisle, the cafe we used to go to after her treatments when she wanted to feel like a person again, and not just a patient. It was closed. A new sign in the window, under new management. I stood there for a minute, staring at the empty chairs inside. I knew which one was hers. Always the one facing the street so she could people watch and judge their coats. She said it was her favorite game. I ended up at the lake by noon. I hadn't asked for the location, but I didn't need to. It had to be that lake. The one we went to every August. The one where she said the water was still enough to hear your own thoughts. I remember once, when I was 16, I told her I wanted to live near water someday. She just nodded and said, "It's good to be near something that reflects you back." When I stepped out of the Uber, the air hit like a warning. Everything was muted, like the snow-swallowed sound itself. There was no one else there, just the imprint of tire tracks, faint boot prints in the powder. I followed them, and when I reached the dock, I saw it. A single red rose tied to the wooden railing with a white ribbon. That was hers. That was Mom's touch. Not Rachel's, not Dad's. She did that. For me. For anyone who came late, who came quietly. It wasn't an accident. I sat down on the edge of the dock, let my feet dangle, let the cold bite through the denim like it had permission. I held the envelope in my lap, her handwriting. Still loopy, still confident. I stared at it until my fingers finally moved, and I opened it. It wasn't long, just a folded piece of paper. It said, "Lily, if you're reading this, I know you came. Even if they didn't wait, I knew you would. I knew you'd find your own way. Don't carry their choices on your back. You've always carried too much. You don't have to be loud to be seen. You don't have to perform grief for anyone else. You were always my still water. Love." Mom, I sat there for a long time, letting it settle, letting it carve a new space inside me. A small, quiet one. And for the first time since landing, I cried. Not the kind that begs for comfort, the kind that just releases, the kind you only cry when someone finally sees you, even if they're gone. That evening, Rachel texted again. "Hope you're okay. We're having dinner at Dad's tonight if you want to come by. We saved you a seat." A seat? Now? After? Everything? I stared at the screen. Didn't reply. Instead, I took a picture of the rose on the railing, posted it on my own account with no caption, just a still shot of the dock, and let them wonder where I was. I didn't go to dinner. I stayed in the motel, curled up in a chair that smelled faintly like mildew and old takeout, the kind of scent that clings to silence and shame. I kept the lights dim and let the lamp buzz in the corner. There was something comforting about its imperfection, like it wasn't trying to impress anyone, just existing. Like me. Rachel posted a photo on her story later that night. The dining room table, candles, matching plates, one of Mom's casserole dishes in the center. Her caption, her recipe, our hearts. "We miss you, Mom." But I saw it. The seat, at the edge of the table, the one with the wobbly leg, the one no one ever wanted when we were kids. They saved me that seat. How poetic. The next morning, I went home. Not because I wanted to, but because something in me needed to stand in that house. Again, just once. The Uber dropped me off at the curb, and the first thing I noticed was the wreath on the door. Artificial pine. A silver bow. Too neat. Too bland. Mom would have made one from dried oranges and cinnamon sticks. She used to joke that our door smelled like pie long before you ever stepped inside. Rachel answered the door like she'd been waiting. She looked relieved. "Hey," she said, her voice soft, sweetened by something rehearsed. "I wasn't sure you'd come." I didn't hug her, just walked past, slowly, into the hallway. The light fixture was new. So was the rug. They'd already started changing things. I paused at the living room doorway. Dad sat in his recliner, holding a mug with both hands like it might anchor him. He looked up, didn't smile, just nodded once. "Glad you came," he said. That was it. No one said, "I'm sorry we didn't wait." No one said, "We should have told you." I nodded back and let the silence hang like a coat on a hook. Then I asked the question I'd been dreading. "Can I see her room?" Rachel hesitated. Just enough. Then, "Of course, it's just been freshened." Up a little. We didn't know if you'd... She didn't finish. Just started up the stairs before I could respond. I followed. The door was closed. That surprised me. They never closed it when she was gone. During chemo, it always stayed open, as if that would invite light back in. As if pretending she wasn't fading would stop it from happening. Rachel opened it like a tour guide. And there it was. Not a shrine. Not even a soft echo of her. Just a freshly painted room, pale blue, a desk in place of the vanity, some throw pillows on the bed, a different quilt, no framed photo, no scarves, no scent. She said she wanted it to be bright, Rachel offered. So we thought. I stopped listening, because on the dresser, next to a new mirror, I saw something small, tucked behind a candle. A tiny ceramic owl. Mom's. She used to keep it on her windowsill, next to the herbs she'd pretend to remember to water. She said it watched over her sleep, that it reminded her to stay curious, even when everything felt heavy. I picked it up. The glaze was chipped at the beak, still warm from the sun through the window. She would have wanted you to have it, Rachel said softly. I didn't answer. I slipped it into my pocket. They had repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and redone the curtains. But they didn't erase her. They just tried to. And in their rush to redecorate their grief into something manageable, they forgot the parts that linger, like how the third floor creaks at night, like how her music box sometimes winds itself open when the sun hits it just right, like me, still here, still quiet, still seeing everything. That evening, I packed my things, not because I had a plan, but because staying felt like agreeing to their version of closure, agreeing to their timeline of grief. And I couldn't do that. I wouldn't. Before I left, I stopped by the hallway closet, opened the box labeled Misk. I found it, her scarf drawer, still knotted, still fragrant with lavender and the faint ghost of her shampoo. I took the plum-colored one, the one she wore the day we got matching hot chocolates and watched the first snow fall from the car. Windows fogged, hands silent but warm. I wrapped it around my neck again, and this time, it felt like armor. I didn't say goodbye. I just slipped out while the house was quiet, while Rachel was in the kitchen pretending not to notice, and Dad was upstairs doing whatever he did to avoid the echo of absence. I didn't need another stiff farewell or another empty sentence like, "Come back soon," from people who made sure I missed the only moment that ever really mattered. The air outside was brittle, the way winter gets when it's holding back a storm. I walked slowly to the corner, my breath clouding around me, the scarf high against my face. In my pocket, the ceramic owl bumped against my phone. A soft reminder. They didn't even notice it was missing. Back at the motel, I laid everything out, on the bed, the owl, the scarf, the envelope from Mom, still folded neatly, and the journal. That journal had become my ritual, my tether. I opened it to a fresh page and wrote, "They're grieving her the way they knew her, and I'm grieving the way she knew me. They want to clean the house, repaint the walls, organize the closets, as if it scrubs the paint off the floorboards. But I want to remember where the floorboards creak. I don't need to forgive them to feel peace. I just need to keep what's mine." That night, Rachel called. I watched her name light up the screen. Let it ring out once, twice. Then I answered. Hey, I said flatly. I just wanted to say thanks for coming by, she said. It meant a lot. I know it was hard. I didn't respond. She filled the silence. She always did. I hope you. No, we didn't mean to exclude you. Things happened fast and Dad was a mess, and you were so far away and... You could have waited, I said. Soft. Factual. I know, she whispered. You're right. I'm sorry. That was the first time she'd said it. The first time anyone had. But it landed wrong. Not bitter. Just too late. Like offering an umbrella after the downpour has already soaked you through. I'm heading back soon, I told her. Oh, she said. Okay, will you be home for Christmas? It took me a second to realize she still called it home. I didn't answer that question. Just said, good night, and hung up. The next morning, I checked out early. The woman at the desk offered a polite smile, but I could tell she recognized me. Small towns always do. Grief makes you visible in ways joy never does. I left a note under the pillow. Not for the staff. For Mom. I wrote, I didn't miss you. I just missed them missing me. And now I don't anymore. At the airport, I sat near the window again. Same seat, same sky, different weight, in my chest. There was a couple sitting across from me. Maybe late 20s, whispering softly, hands clasped too tightly. I wondered who they had just buried, or maybe who they were flying to see for the last time. I hoped they made it. I hoped someone waited. Before boarding, I opened my phone and started to type a message in the group chat. I stared at the blinking cursor for a full minute, then I closed it. Instead, I texted my landlord, told her I was staying in Seattle for good. Then I opened a new note, titled it, What They Didn't Know I Took, and wrote, the owl, the scarf, her real letter, the truth myself. Seattle welcomed me with rain. Not the heavy cinematic kind, just that quiet drizzle that turns everything silver. The kind that seeps into your collarbone and your mood without asking. I didn't take a cab home. I walked from the light rail, dragging my carry-on across sidewalks glazed with puddles and old gum. My boots were soaked through by the time I unlocked my apartment door. Inside, the air was stale, still, and a little too quiet. I stood there for a while. Let my bag stay by the door. Let the silence wash over me like warm water. No one to ask me what happened. No one waiting for a recap of grief. Just me. And the stillness. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked through the apartment in the dark, touching each thing like I was making sure it remembered me. The plant on the window ledge, the mug on the counter, the coat still hanging by the radiator. Pulled out the journal. Set it beside the bed. I pulled out the scarf. Hung it from the chair. And then I pulled out the owl. I held it in my palm for a long time. Its chipped beak. Its tiny painted eyes. I walked it gently to my windowsill. Placed it next to the little blue pot where my cactus was dying but hadn't quite given up yet, I whispered. She would have liked you here. 2 days passed before I opened her music box. I had wrapped it in a sweater in the bottom of my bag, careful not to let them see when I packed it. It had sat on her nightstand since before I was born. She said it had belonged to her mother, and her mother before that. Rachel probably assumed it was buried in a storage box somewhere, something lost in the shuffle of repainting grief. But I had taken it. I had taken it without asking. Because I was done asking, I set it on my dresser and cracked it open. It played a lullaby I hadn't heard since childhood, a tune that always made me feel like things could pause, just for a breath. I listened, then closed it softly. A week passed. Rachel texted once, thinking of you. Dad wants to send some of Mom's things. Should we mail or wait for you to visit? I didn't reply. I didn't need what they wanted to offer now. I had already chosen what was mine. I started sleeping better. I started drinking coffee slower in the morning. I started reading again. Not books about loss, but novels where no one died and nothing was taken. Stories where the ending didn't twist. I cleaned out my kitchen cabinets one night and found the recipe card she sent me 2 years ago, handwritten in her uneven scrawl, smudged from olive oil. Lily's lemon pasta. The only one you never ruined. I smiled, then cooked it. It didn't taste exactly like hers. It never would. But I ate it slowly, alone, and didn't feel lonely. Sometimes when I look at the owl in the window, I think about the lake, how it probably looked under snow, how they all stood there, thinking they were doing the right thing, how they never turned around to see if someone was missing from the picture. But Mom would have. She would have scanned the crowd and counted heads and waited until mine was there. She always did. I wrote in the journal again that night. They took ashes. I kept flame. They built a ceremony. I built memory. They scattered her once. I carry her daily. And they'll never know where I put her music box. Because this time, it's not for sharing. Spring came slowly in Seattle. It always does. The kind of season that doesn't announce itself. Just lingers in the smell of wet earth and the return of birds you can never quite name. The kind of season Mom loved, because as she once said, spring doesn't ask for permission, it just arrives. I'd stopped checking the family group chat weeks ago. I muted it after Rachel shared a photo of herself in Mom's old coat. One Mom said she'd pass down to me someday. It still smelled like her, that coat. Of almond soap and cedar drawers. I guess Rachel found it in the upstairs closet. Probably tucked in behind Dad's winter jackets and some half-forgotten boxes of cards I made as a child. There wasn't a caption on the photo. Just a mirror, selfie and a heart emoji. But I knew what it meant. And more importantly, I knew what it didn't. I started going to the bookstore again. There's a small one down the street, wedged between a bakery and a bike shop, run by an older woman named Camille, who never asks you how you're doing, but always remembers what you last bought. She once told me grief shows up in what people reread. Apparently, I bought the same book of Mary Oliver poems twice. I didn't. Tell her I lost the first copy in my mother's hospital bag. I just smiled, paid, and left. One Tuesday, the mail arrived late. Inside the box, a package with Rachel's handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before bringing it inside. It was wrapped in floral tape, tidy, gentle, curated. Inside, a stack of photos, a pale yellow envelope, and a necklace I hadn't seen since college. A tiny gold locket, oval-shaped, with a dent near the clasp. I held it in my palm and just stared. I had given that locket to Mom for her 60th. She wore it all through her treatment. I remember seeing her fingers trace it when the nurses turned away. I remember the chain glinting under hospital lights. And now it was back, with a note. Thought you might want this back. She wore it almost every day. Love. Rach. There was something deeply kind about the gesture, and something quietly unspoken, like maybe this was her way of saying what she couldn't say out loud. I didn't cry. I just placed the locket next to the owl. 2 pieces of her that had found their way home. Not theirs. Mine. That night, I opened the yellow envelope. Inside was a folded letter from Dad. His handwriting. Firmer than I remembered, like he was trying too hard not to shake. Lily, I know you probably won't respond. And that's okay. I've been thinking about the day we scattered her ashes, and the silence that followed. I was ashamed. I still am. You should have been there, and I should have made sure of it. But I didn't, and I don't have an excuse. I just hope, in time, you'll remember me for more than that day. Love, Dad It was the first time he'd ever written me a letter, and the first time he said the word ashamed. I didn't write him back. Not yet. Some grief doesn't close like chapters. It just fades into different shades. 2 weeks later, I bought a wooden box at an antique store. Small, carved, quiet. Inside, I placed the journal, the locket, the letter, the photo I took of the rose by the lake, and a tiny dried sprig of lavender from Mom's scarf. Then I slid it onto the top shelf of my closet. Labeled it with just one word, kept, because not everything needs to be answered. Not every ache needs a confrontation. Some things, the best things, are simply kept, not shared, not performed, just honored in stillness. The first time I returned to the lake, it was almost summer. The dock was worn, pale with sun-bleached wood, but still familiar, still quiet. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not Rachel, not Dad, not the chat that still existed even though we hadn't exchanged more than holiday-forwarded messages in months. I took a bus, then walked the last half-mile. Wore sneakers instead of boots this time. Wore the plum-colored scarf, even though it was too warm for it. It wasn't for the weather. It was for her. I carried a thermos of coffee and a folded lawn chair. Sat at the very end of the dock with my feet crossed and my back straight. There was no ceremony, no rose this time, just me, and the place they thought they gave her to the wind. I brought the journal, opened to a blank page, and wrote, I remember your voice when you read aloud from the paper, even when no one asked you to. I remember how you hated store-bought icing. I remember the way your hands smelled like rosemary in the summer and like cold metal in winter. I remember everything they forgot. And that is my grief. Not forgetting, but carrying. Not ashes. Memory. A dragonfly landed on the railing while I was writing. Stayed there for longer than it should have. Long enough for me to notice the iridescence in its wings. Long enough for me to whisper, I see you. I closed the journal and sat in the stillness. Rachel texted again a week later. Just a photo of a blanket fort, a chubby toddler's feet sticking out, toes covered in marker. Then, Ellie made a reading cave. Mom would have loved her. I hope you'll meet her soon. Ellie, her daughter. She never told me she'd given birth. Or maybe she did. Maybe it was buried in the noise I stopped listening to months ago. I stared at the photo, and for the first time, I didn't feel excluded. Felt distant, but not in a hollow way, in a peaceful one, like watching birds from a window. Beautiful, but untouchable. I didn't reply. Not yet. I saved the photo. Filed it in a folder on my phone titled Later. Because maybe someday I would meet Ellie. Not for Rachel, not for Dad, but for Mom. Because I think she would have wanted that. But only when I was ready. I looked around my apartment that night. It didn't feel like a retreat anymore. It felt claimed. The owl sat on the windowsill, still facing the morning light. The music box was closed, but I liked knowing it could still sing. The scarf hung from a hook by the door, the last thing I touched before leaving, the first thing I touched when I returned. And the wooden box labeled Kept sat untouched in the closet. Not hidden, just resting. People say grief softens. I don't know if that's true, but mine changed shape, from an open wound to a quiet possession. It didn't ache every day anymore. It simply sat beside me, not demanding anything, just waiting. The invitation came in late September. A cream-colored envelope. My name written in Rachel's handwriting. The kind she used to practice in notebooks, curling her L's like loops of ribbon. Inside was an invitation to Ellie's first birthday. There was a photo attached. Ellie, round-cheeked and barefoot, in a soft blue dress sitting in a backyard I didn't recognize. A small cake before her, hands already deep in frosting. Below it, "We'd love for you to come, even just for a little while. No pressure, no apology, just an open door." I set the card on my desk and walked to the window. Outside, the leaves had just started to turn. Yellow clung to the trees like it hadn't decided whether to stay or fall. I thought of Mom's hands in autumn, always cold, always busy, tucking scarves, raking leaves, brushing my bangs from my face like I was still small. I thought of the rose on the railing, the owl, the music box, the letter folded in the back of the journal. I thought of how she loved us both, Rachel and me, but never equally. Because love isn't equal. It's personal, quiet, specific. And she knew me in a way the others never did. She knew where to leave the breadcrumbs, and she knew I'd follow. Even late, even quietly. I didn't go to the party. But I mailed Ellie a book, the same one Mom used to read to me when I was sick. Inside, I wrote, "For Ellie, from someone who carries stories the way others carry photographs. Ask your mama about your grandma's scarf. Ask her what it smelled like and how she used to hum when she cooked. Ask, gently. She might not remember at first, but I do. Love, your Aunt Lily, it rained the next morning. I opened the window anyway. The owl stayed dry. The music box sang when I brushed against it, reaching for my scarf. I let it play. No tears this time, no ache, just the soft, golden sound of something kept. Not for others, not for performance, not for legacy, but for peace. I took the wooden box from the closet, opened it, held each item slowly, not because I needed the comfort, but because I was ready to let them rest. I tied the scarf around the box, closed it, and slid it under the bed. Still mine. Still kept. But no longer something I needed to touch to feel close. This is how I chose to remember her. Not through the ceremony they didn't wait for. Not through the seat they left empty too late. Not even through the photo of the rose. But through the way I carry silence now. Not as something heavy, but as something sacred. I didn't say goodbye. Because She never really left. She just became stiller than before. And I became someone who finally made peace with stillness.